Joshua and Jess. Okay, I'm Blake Robbins, and unless you have questions, I'll just jump in. This is just kind of as if we were at the film festival and the film just played, and you come up to, thundering ovation, standing O, and we ask you.
Thousands and thousands of people,
Yeah,
tears streaming down their eyes.
Exactly. So we give them 5 or 10 minutes to collect themselves, and then we ask, 25 minutes of questions. We just have a little more freedom.
Should we just start there? Should we just start? Guys, thank you so much. No, seriously, thank you.
Exactly.
Guys, I can't. This means so much to Jess and I. This is the response that we always dreamed of when we made a film like this. You can sit down now. You can say, I'm not a god. You can sit down now.
And I'd like Bend Film Festival to shoot the other side of that with their audience.
With the 5 people going.
Yeah.
There are going to be way more people at the Bend Film Festival than that, John.
Yeah.
Not by the end of our movie. There were like 74 when the movie started, and only 5, and then
it'll be the pegging scene. It'll be the pegging scene where we go down to 5.
Oh, does this play after or before the screening?
This is going to be attached to the film. So when, like on the webpage, when the virtual film festival, exactly, there will be plenty of time for that. People should have already been voting, but yes, they will still have time to actually vote. Cool. So let me ask you. Let me start with this. Let me throw, since there's 2 of you, I'll like debate style. I'll throw a question to one, then the other, and you'll have 30 seconds to respond to your other candidate if you want to take them down for any reason. But let me throw the first question to Jess. The first question I think we should start with is, how long has this collaboration, this creative collaboration and friendship, where does it go back to? How did it start? You want to answer that, Jess?
Back when we were young, Josh and I met at a film festival. Let's call it
1974.
1974. Let's just say over a decade ago.
Okay.
We met, and pretty immediately we were like, I want to work with you. Yeah. And then I think within the next 3 months or something like that, we made The Lie, which was our first improv movie. The movie you just watched is primarily improv, based on very firm outlines.
That was one of the questions.
And so we made that film much the same way. It's mildly less comedic, but in the same zone.
And comedic. It's mildly
and
less
comedic. Guys, I'm tired. I have a toddler. So we started acting like husband and wife then, and we were pretending we had just had a baby in that one, and loved it so much. We wanted to keep going. So, but this is only the second time we've worked together officially. We've just been
on a feature. We've collaborated on other little things over the years, but this is and this film is kind of maybe we'll do a triptych at some point, but this film is kind of the unofficial prequel to the first film that we made together.
Yeah, fantastic.
If we make another one, the trilogy would show in that order. You would show this one first, then the one we made 10 years ago, and then whatever else the future holds.
Fantastic. Well, that leads me to another question. I'll throw this one over to Joshua. Joshua, maybe you could talk broadly about where an idea for a film comes from, and then specifically where this idea came from. Obviously, Jess kind of set us up by talking about the collaboration and the other film and how they connected, but maybe you could talk about the specifics.
I mean, any idea that I've ever had for a film has always just come from some sense of self-loathing, self-exploration, self-consideration, trying to figure out, how the fuck to live life in this universe and be a decent human and son and father and husband and friend, and so the germ, the idea for this film actually came from the fact that that I was in a creative funk and wanted to do something with people who I loved and trusted, and something that I thought would be fun and therapeutic. And my dear friend and longtime collaborator Jess was 6 months pregnant at the time, and so it was kind of reverse engineered by, I want to work with Jess again. She's pregnant. A lot of the existential stuff I'm carrying around right now, and a lot of the questioning that I'm doing has to do with being a new father. I was a father to a young daughter at the time, and just trying to adapt to that new role, and what that meant, and how it started. Obviously, as everybody says, being a new parent made me start looking at my own parents differently, and the relationship that I'd had with them versus the relationship that I had with my daughter, and seeing all the wonderful things and horrible things that I had inherited from them, and all the wonderful things and horrible things that I will inevitably pass on to my kid or kids. And Jess was pregnant, and I was like, maybe we should make a movie about this.
Yeah, one of the beautiful things about watching this film, and there are many of them, but just the fun thing is you seldom see a pregnant actress on screen who is actually pregnant, and you guys took full advantage of that. So it was immediately, apparent that we weren't dealing with a prosthetic or a weight bag or a heavy thing, that this actress, this mother, was indeed, significantly pregnant.
It was like a Christmas miracle to get cast in something at 8 months pregnant. I was like, oh my God, I get to work. This is rad. True. And it's going to make acting easier.
Yeah. And how were you personally doing with your pregnancy at the time that you made a movie? Because most people don't have to juggle both of those at the same time. I mean, was the pregnancy going okay, obviously, or were there some issues?
It was going well. I mean, I was nervous before we started, and I had told Josh, because my OBGYN had been like, oh, your white blood cell count is a little too high, and you need to make sure you're not stressed. And I was like, Josh, if I make this movie, I cannot be stressed while we're making it. And then it was like, well, let's just add that into the movie, that you're constantly trying to not stress out. And really, I think it did de-stress me, because it gave me something to focus on, and we were laughing so hard trying to get through so many of those scenes. I mean, I'll do a giveaway right here. Because I was pregnant and so much was going on with my body differently, sometimes I laughed so hard I sort of peed my pants a little. I couldn't help that.
Yeah,
it happens. Josh is a very funny man.
And you had an extra 20 pounds of weight sitting on your bladder.
Exactly.
I will say, and that's the interesting thing, because Jess was such she was such a hero for agreeing to do the project, and then such a badass for, truly showing up in, with her full self and her full glory, to make this movie. It was, which it always feels like an honor as a director when, actors come in and trust you to, be vulnerable and stuff in this scene. But that was amplified by like powers of 10 on this one, just because what a fucking sacred time in somebody's life. It really it felt special in a way that I think a prosthetic never would have felt. And probably because we improvised so much of it, as Jess said, we could just lean into our own realities at that time. So we didn't have to, you know, we weren't pretending like she was not pregnant. And, you know, sometimes you're shooting a movie and it's December and you're trying to pretend that it's June and you're in a bathing suit. And the whole job is to not let your teeth chatter. And this was one where we were just like, no, she's really pregnant. And that's actually going to be the organizing principle of this entire shoot. And by the way, if she goes into labor on day 4, we don't finish our movie, and we all have to be okay with that, because like it's one of those few times, for however fucking seriously we all take ourselves as creative people, and somebody invariably shouts out, "It's not brain surgery, we're just making movies." And this was one of those times where like you have an 8-month pregnant woman on your set and you're like, oh, that's objectively the most important thing here. And anything that we get on film in the meantime, I hope it's good, but making sure that this person and this about to be person are safe and protected and is everybody's main priority. And so it also gave a spirit of you know, for that tiny little window of time, it was all our baby.
Gotcha.
I did feel like she felt all of you caring for her.
Aww.
Yeah.
Let me ask this, since you guys have hit on it, it's an improvised movie, and for me, one of the funniest scenes, there's many funny scenes, but one of the funniest scenes is the hummus scene. So maybe you can talk about the relationship of an improvised movie, and how do you end up in, do you have an idea, we're going to do this scene, and what's the technical aspect that so you pick a place and you pick you tell me, how do you end up
That
with the scene
specifically? That scene I'm going to punt to Josh, because I basically did have lines in that scene because I was
Jess had lines in that scene, because that scene was, I would say, a 78% verbatim fight that I had with my wife when she was 8 months pregnant. Okay. She excoriated me like I've never been excoriated before at one point, because I'd bought one too many containers of hummus. And it became a full meltdown. So that was one of those ones where I was just like, Jess, this crazy fucking thing happened to me when my wife was pregnant, and I would like to recreate it. But in terms of
that, the word hummus is so funny, especially when repeated and used usually. Yeah.
It is, and hummus as the crux of like a big power struggle in a relationship is just inherently hilarious.
Yes, the scene might not have ever happened had it been like a bottle of ketchup, or
ketchup. Way less funny.
Way less funny.
Way less funny and way less expensive. So the stakes are lower.
Fun, not fun. I mean, were there any takes? I mean, how many takes do you shoot of that? And did the hummus ever get, more out of control than we saw on screen? Or because there's some visual play with the hummus too.
All I can say Josh can talk to the experience of shoveling hummus in his mouth, but yeah. I was about to vomit. It was so gross to me to smell it on him and to watch him doing it. That was very real. Speaking to vomit, I'll talk about it, but I did actually vomit at one point in the middle of filming, and that's right before Josh had to kiss me at the fountain. So this is just more of like the uncontrollable joys of
breath spray
working in these circumstances. No breath spray even. Josh just took me as I was. That's real friendship. Oh, did we lose Josh? He just cut off.
Hey, there he is. See
I'm
that?
back. Sorry, guys.
For too long. No worries. So let me ask you this. What's the best part of making a movie with your friends? And if there's a worst part, what would that be?
You're muted, Jess. You're muted.
I was talking to my daughter. Nobody needed to hear that. The best
Actually, why don't
part.
you hold up your daughter and we see who played the baby bump? Let's see her.
Beatrice, come here. You were in a movie, and people want to see who you are in a minute. When she naturally
Very
makes her
demanding
way.
actress. Very demanding actress.
Yeah, she doesn't come on screen until she's had the works.
Till everybody's done their places.
Yeah. The best part is what we were saying before, that we just totally trust each other. I mean, a lot of those scenes are really vulnerable. Even though they're funny, they're really scary and vulnerable. And I do think you have to have a partner to go there with sometimes. And he was the partner that I was willing to be, I mean, for lack of a better word, just the way I was. You know, pregnant and showing myself and having needs and being hormonal and confessing, you know, things that were obviously adapted for the movie's circumstances, but issues with my own parents that are true to me and that, you know, have some need for being addressed and cared for. And it was nice to be able to talk about our real problems and fears and our real bad habits with each other in preparation, so that we could come to the scenes that we needed to make the movie what it was. I guess the worst part is I don't really know that there was a worst part, except that we really could actually bicker sometimes, but not even that bad. And it was always still kind of funny. So I don't really know that there was a worst part.
The friendship was never in danger.
No.
That's good. And I'm going to agree. I'm going to assume that Joshua feels similarly.
I do, and for me, I mean, when I say I selfishly arranged this movie to have a good experience making a movie, I mean that literally. Like, this was, I was in such a funk, and I was feeling like I didn't want to make movies anymore, but I was feeling like I really love working with my friends. And so this entire movie was set up around working with my friends. Ben Kasulke, who shot the film, we've worked together 5 times before. Janixa Bravo, who's in the film, was a dear friend. Zach Shields was a dear friend. Ross and Jen are dear friends. Erica Chitty Cohen, who plays the doula in the film, was Allison and my doula in real life. She actually helps to deliver my daughter Wilder. So she's not an actor. She was just a doula.
She was so good. She was so good. And that's interesting. I would have never known she wasn't an actress. She was so comfortable, and she offered, you know, and she did more than non-actors usually do in films, if that makes sense. She actually provided a counterpoint and a point of thing, instead of just being, you know what I mean, there being herself. There was actually a performance to be given.
Well, it's interesting, you know, every acting book and teacher will always tell you that, you know, that the key to acting is just listening and being present, and having been through the experience of being in the room with her while, you know, in this collaboration with her and my wife, where she was helping deliver the baby, I was like, there is nobody more there's no better listener, and there's nobody more present on the planet than Erica. So I don't want to blow
the movie, but her seeing the final moments with her character, really nice turn, really funny moments, really, you know, by then she's kind of you know, in a good way, speaking for the audience, like, dude, we're done.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and that little comedic beat of you're not sure where she's going to take it, and then she goes that direction.
Yeah.
That was a really nice moment in the film. So good for her. Hopefully there's some more acting for her in her career. Anyway.
Yeah, she's very sick. She just opened a very successful birth education center in Los Angeles and brought in a bunch of VC money. I think she's got far more important things to do in her life than acting.
Exactly. Well, one of the things that you've touched on a few times that I had on my "if I ran out of things to say" list, and you've hit on it several times. But let's talk a little more about the respite of the creative respite of having this home you could bring to for yourself in the it's what sounds like the wake of the rest of the business, which is just so unpredictable and just not always the most forgiving or the best creative place for you. I mean, how wonderful is that, and how necessary? Because I'm thinking, given yours and Jess's careers, that we'll have actors watching this, actors who are admirers and fans of your careers and of your work and of your creative collaboration. So maybe just for a second we can talk to those actors a little bit about the importance of creating your own space, creating your own creative community that you can so you have two rails for the train to run on as opposed to one, and the one seems out of control often.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think it's where we all start. It's certainly where I started, is just making shit with your friends, and then there's this whole career thing that, if you're fortunate, happens where you start making a living doing what you do, and it's it's not just because you have something to say and you like hanging out with these people and running a camera. It's your job, and that can be both wonderful. I mean, God knows how fortunate I am to have made a living, making movies for over 20 years now. But in the midst of that, I think it's also easy to forget that original impetus of, just making stuff with your friends. And I feel so wildly fortunate, along the way from my collaborators on Blair Witch to kind of, Lynn Shelton and the Duplass team, who I got hooked up with around Hump Day, and the collaborations that I've had with them, to have continued to meet people over the course of my career who do provide almost like that separate track you were talking about, which is, let's all go make some money, and then if that gets too soul crushing, let's come back and make some things for ourselves. And so the only difference between doing it when I was 15 and doing it now in my 40s is that I've got much more talented people that I can call on and ask for favors, like Jess, and I'll do the same for them, and that really does. And look, this is a 12 scene movie that we shot in 7.5 days for $5. I mean, it was really set up to allow for maximum creativity. And I do think you have to create those opportunities for yourself, if it's a priority for you. And I feel really lucky to have a team of people around who will pick up the phone and actually show up.
Yeah. Hey, Jess, thank you. Picking up on this conversation a little bit, going a little further with it. So as actors, after we've spent 20, 30, 20, 15, whatever, how many years in the business, there's always like a fisherman, the one that got away. And I think when people look at actors of your statures, Joshua's stature, your stature, we forget that there are some that got away. Would you be willing to share a one that got away, Jess?
Do you mean a project that got away?
Yeah, one. Yeah, you don't even, I don't know, have to name it, but was there something huge that you really wanted to do that got either really close and didn't. I was watching Brie Larson the other day on, did you see Brie Larson did a 4-minute video, and she talked about every movie and every TV show she didn't get. It was hilarious. It was also very life affirming, I think, for young actors. I shared it with a few young actors that I mentor. I was like, you got to see this, here's Brie Larson. And some of this stuff you think, well, how did she not end up in that in retrospect? So I was just curious. I figured you had a few. I mean, no one gets them all.
I mean, there's so many. It's really hard to narrow it down.
No way to isolate a single heartbreak. You didn't we're up for Katniss and Hunger Games or something, and
No, the heartbreaks just started rolling into each other. Then it just became like, well, you lose some, and then maybe you get to work with your friends. That's sort of what it became. But I guess the heartbreak for me actually came on something that I finally did get. I was like, oh, I finally got a pilot that's badass. It was with Jason Katims. It was like the team of Friday Night Lights. And I was like, this is what I've always wanted, is to do a Jason Katims show. And it was with Michael B. Jordan and Jason Ritter and Michael Imperioli. It was like I'm working with the best people on this medical drama that's about county hospitals and going in and dealing with hospitals that have no funds and no money. I was like, it matters, and it's on network, so I'm going to make tons of money. They're and they obviously did not pick up the show. And I had in my mind built my life for the next 12 years. I was like, we're good to go. I was like, look at this situation.
And then independent films the rest of your life off the bank.
Yeah, I mean, and it was replaced by this show called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Something where a doctor had to inject himself with some potion to turn into a monster in order to do his best work. It was so, I'll just say, it was so stupid what we were replacing that I just felt fury and pain and the world was hopeless. So I went into a little hole for months over that one.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. And I think it's good for actors who see actors who they assume are of a certain position to relate to this reality, the reality for everyone in this business, how insane it can be.
And I guess what I have to say about that also is that the reason it felt so huge is because I'd spent the last 4 years auditioning for pilots and not getting them. And pilot season just makes you feel like a total piece of cattle and meat. And I was like, finally. And so I think that's why it was also such a bummer.
That makes sense. That's a good story. I appreciate you sharing. Yeah. How about you, Joshua? You got any act? I mean, you said you were in a funk. Was that just a general malaise, or was there anything triggering, or both?
Yeah, I mean both. There were plenty of things triggering it, but I would say, other than the very rare anomalies out there, just the preternaturally talented, beautiful, incredible people who kind of hit a stride and more or less stay on it. The experience for the rest of us, which I would include myself with, the 99.99 percentile, is you're going to get your heart broken over and over and over and over and over and over again. There will always be more disappointments than there are successes, because as you aptly said before, you're totally out of control of the results. You get to put the work in, and that's all you get to do, is you put the work in, and everything else is out of your control. So how to sustain that, that ongoing disappointment over time without your heart hardening and shutting down, the sacred place that you pull your creativity from is really the trick, because you have to be able to stay open and have feelings and be vulnerable in order to keep making stuff. So this is this is the trick that I've found, along with a number of people that I esteem and look up to in my own life, is I mean, I made this film for the same amount of money that I made stuff, I made it for less than we made Blair Witch Project for 20 years ago. It's not about the money. It's how do you keep the creative spirit alive when in a way that you do have control over.
Yeah, well, I really, I don't want to go too long, just because I think people look at the time and then they don't want to jump in. If it's 40 minutes, I could talk to you guys for the next 20 minutes. I'm really enjoying the conversation. So I'm going to kind of bring it back to, obviously we're in a new day and age when it comes to films and film festivals and what's going on. I personally look into the industry, and people are sort of saying doom and gloom, and everything's shutting down, and these theaters are, everything's contracting, and there will be this contraction in our business and less jobs, less work, whatever. I think we're doing something that's been around since the dawn of time. We're telling stories, and there's always going to be a way that storytelling has to rise to the top, and I can't think of a time in my life where stories have been more important. So I don't know what the future looks like, but as it's maybe you can tell me a little bit about what you think the future for fully realized humans is, and maybe the future of the business, or whatever, or how you see it. What do you think the next year or two provides for you in this film and in the business in general, if that's not too much to answer in 30 seconds?
I'll try to quickly speak to the industry. I think once we get through this pocket of whatever, not having a vaccine and people having to work with constant testing, where some stuff is still getting made, I think there's going to be a ton of work. I think that there's all of these networks, all of these streaming lines need to fill the space where this has been left empty. And I think I heard from an inside scoop that, like, I'm not allowed to say which one, but they're making twice as many as they made last year. I think it's going to come back huge.
Yeah, and people are going to want stories more than ever before. There's going to be, we're missing new stories, and there are stories to tell now. Yeah.
And it's really interesting that what I can guarantee you is people are going to keep making awesome things. And it might look different and sound different than we've seen before, and it'll be a different. I think we're so lucky as longtime independent people, because it's not like small crew size. Short shoots, great. Been doing it for a long time, but I think the voice of creative people will always find its way, and it's a shitty thing to have to adapt to, because there's a lot of people actually losing their lives out there. But the reality is, people are always going to figure out a way to tell stories. Nothing's going to stop that.
I love it, and I agree with both you, and I appreciate your time today. I really appreciate your movie, and I know the Bend Film Festival will appreciate it too. So
Thanks,
thank
Blake.
you so much,
Thank
Joshua.
you, Blake.
Thank you, Jess. I wish you guys
care,
well.
Guys. You as well.
Yeah.
Take care.